This episode is presented by our partners at DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Download the DraftKings app now and use code Dan to get in on the action.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugatz Podcast.
This guy's popular around here. He's got that accent, feels like syrup. Last time he was on with us. Hey, yeah, Super Bowl is going to be on pay-per-view in your lifetime. Just did that as the dismount. So let's talk sports business with the CEO of Meadowlark Media so he can help us what's going on, help us understand what's going on with gambling and this revolution as everyone gets in the streaming game. You must be fascinated by how quickly things are changing as someone who was pioneering with the buying of sports rights at ESPN.
Well, what's happening with gambling is happening remarkably quickly. And I, at ESPN for many years, was a bit of an obstacle to this. I wasn't that excited about it. We were part of the Walt Disney Company, and we had made the decision that it really wasn't for us, though there was almost weekly somebody who tried to sneak some gambling in, most notably our old friend Brent Musburger, who would talk about the fellows in the desert. You'd get up into the fourth quarter of a college football game on Saturday night, and somebody would be up by 6 who was favored by 8, and he would say, the boys in the desert are looking for a field goal here to cover.
And that was by edict at Disney, stay away from the gambling, that he'd have to sneak it in. We've gone from there that fast to here, like bleep it. Everybody in. Everyone gets into the games. We're going to have sports betting here in the stadiums in a couple of years.
It was pretty verboten at ESPN for a long time. You got to give a little street cred to a couple of pioneers, right? Jimmy the Greek on CBS. They, I think, were the first guys to slip into it. And then a Miami fellow, Hank Goldberg, frequently would manage to get some time talking about who would win. But very seldom were people picking against the line.
How ridiculous is this to look back on, Mike? The idea that Hank Goldberg on ESPN was shocking at Disney because he was doing lines on television.
Oh, Dan, the Schwam. Oh,
he's forgetting about the Schwam.
You're right.
How's he forgetting about the Schwam? How dare you, ESPN president, forget about the Schwam? The Schwam's right here. He's furious. He's look how mad he is at you because you.
I have a feeling this is going to cost me $5 at some point.
You're going to get fined for something around here quickly.
The good news is I can't be fired.
That is the good news.
The only one who could fire me would be Dan Le Batard.
I don't think I can.
And the only way he could fire me by the governance of the company is if he gets me to agree.
I've had that same deal for a few years. It's pretty decent.
So how much has it changed? How shocked are you to see it change? How much does Adam Silver welcoming gambling? Football was reluctant here. Football's conservative, notoriously conservative. They follow. They do not lead here. So they follow, and usually they'll get anywhere where there's money, but they didn't want to be first to this.
Oh my gosh, the college guys were the ones most reluctant. We actually ended up, they didn't actually want us to do the bracket for the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Just the bracket they didn't want us to do at one point. Yeah, you just mentioned Adam Silver.
That is so stupid, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the only thing people care about every
Millions
year.
of people play that game.
It's how you got exclusives with the president.
Yes.
You got Barack Obama to fill them out.
Yes.
And then everyone realized you should do one for the women, too, and that was great.
Yes.
Everyone realized that many years later.
I
And
think it
also
was
for
year
the
2.
women.
Year 2, we figured it out. Putting Andy Katz in a bad spot here.
It is true. Andy Katz deserves credit. And you do know that Barack Obama almost every year picked North Carolina to win. And he got it right one time. So I'm happy about that.
Every year I pick the Bills in the Niners.
I don't think the one thing I would have to say, Schwab, is Schwab, and Chris would actually put his record up. And by the way, he was only picking winners. I don't think he, right?
No, he was
Was he
going
picking-
ATS.
Yeah, he would pick like a game to finish 18-16. I'm like, no game finishes 18-16, Chris. We know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's right though. But it was subtle because he wasn't actually picking against the line.
But why do we need to be
It's about as subtle as a hurricane sometimes, man.
Let me ask. Be quiet for a second. Most powerful man in sports. I want to ask specifically. Limited fake Berman. Why did we have to be so subtle about the 2-point spreads? What are we?
It just reminds me that I miss Chris Berman.
Yes, a lot has changed over there.
And by the way, the other guy who deserves a little shout out is Chris Felica, who actually was the first guy, the Bear. And that was the first place where I actually was watching College Game Day one morning, and there he was picking games. And I'm like, damn, well, I can't be fired at this job. Somebody else could have been fired, but they actually sort of snuck it in, and we went along with it. And
somebody could have been fired for Chris Felica doing gambling spreads on College Game Day because of how badly it wasn't wanted around there.
I managed with a heavy hand.
I can't believe that's where we are, though, John.
That show was so great about the loud whispers about, closer than the experts think.
Yeah.
They were always sneaking that thing in there.
Yeah. Well, look, once it's like everything, right? Once the walls of Jericho come tumbling down, they come tumbling down, and everybody wants to get in on it. It's not completely separate from all of the changes happening, right? Rights fees going up, linear network fortunes going down. This is a new revenue stream, everybody thinks. Right. And it is the last refuge of every sputtering sports company of any size that they will announce a sports deal. I don't think the day goes by that I don't read in one of the Sportico or Synopsis or one of the many sports media newsletters that somebody is going to save their company or get it set up for selling by adding gambling, and they've done a deal with Penn National or Caesars or DraftKings, like us.
There we go.
Right, so we're full in, and everybody's full in because it makes a lot of sense. Adam articulated one time at
Adam
Silver.
Adam is Adam Silver.
Mr.
You're that tight.
Adam Silver.
They are friends.
And at the they had the annual meeting where they had the tech summit. And Adam did stand up one time and actually proclaim, and it probably was the first major commissioner to proclaim that we're going to be looking at this because it will make people watch the games longer. Adam has never been about, we're going to make a bunch of money on this. It's about, it's going to make people watch the whole game. Ratings are going to go up, and that's how we're going to get paid.
Quick sidebar to do some show here. How do you think Adam Silver makes a proclamation in a crowded room? I think an oversized bell. Personally, but that's because he kind of looks like a church monk to me.
Yes.
It could be a little dainty bell,
like a little dainty bell, like a dinner
French
bell.
maid?
Yeah.
So you have him singing like
you have him being pretty formal,
I
proper.
have a proclamation.
We must take money from our friends in the deserts, closer than the experts think.
It sounds a little Monty Python-ish. I'm not dead yet. Bring out your bets. Bring out your bets.
Love it. We keep getting younger here on the Dan Le Batard Show.
How smart is what you're seeing happening? This gold rush. Is it's reckless?
No, it's not reckless. It's overwhelmingly smart. The least smart thing about it is the fact that everybody thinks they're going to make money off of it. The people who make money already are just going to make more money. You talked about football's reluctance, but ultimately the NFL is the greatest beneficiary. That's where most of the betting happens. But I think stuff is smart. The next thing to happen that's really, really interesting, and it happened a little bit in the UK already, is when you can actually watch the game and make bets during the entirety of the game, make prop bets, when they become fun, right? When it's not just a few things, but people will bet on everything. And odd sports will work here. Golf works here. Plenty of time to make bets. And there's a bet every time somebody pulls a club out of the bag. Tennis, you can bet on everything. You can bet on, does a serve go in? Is it an ace? So those are the things that will really benefit. So the just betting on who's
The
gonna,
in-game wagering is what
Yeah.
the addiction to instant action. That stuff is crack. That's crack cocaine. All of that
Oh,
stuff.
Dan, it's tremendous. All these apps making in-game betting, because that's where a bunch of the business is going to be. And by the way, if you are indeed going to wager, why not wager on DraftKings Sportsbook? You know, it's America's top-rated sportsbook app. And you can get a first-time deposit bonus of up to $1,000. Can you believe that? That's a deposit bonus of up to $1,000. Wow. There's all sorts of cool weekly giveaways and competitions that you can enter totally in for free and test your chops against some of the nation's best. Make sure to download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. And remember, if you have a gambling addiction, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
How much different is sports going to be in 5 years, 10 years? What are the things that you see changing the most with the experience?
Well, ultimately, it will be making it ubiquitously interactive, right? Which can happen on a streaming platform as opposed to a linear network. And it'll actually change the way the game's presented. And there's a lot of discussions right now already. I'll even give a shout out to someone I usually don't give a shout out, which is Barstool's talking about how they can change the way it works, and they'll do it for I think it's the Arizona Bowl, which they just bought. And by the way, in this case, I'll give credit where credit's due. My guess is they'll come up with something interesting. So it's going to make it more fun.
The programming has been stale for a while, doing it the way it's always been done. You need help with your league partners. I think what Barstool is doing with that college bowl game is smart. Well, they'll provide the programming, and it's sure to be different than what it is that you're used to, and people are craving something different.
And that does end up raising the point, too, was ultimately will some of the actual games migrate over to other platforms? I don't think they will in any great
You don't think that
volume.
Amazon and Apple and those guys are going to get, with all the money in the world that Netflix and all of these people have, you don't think that they at some point get into the streaming NFL games business?
They might well.
More than they already are. They already are some.
Yeah, but
Amazon is in it already.
streaming with gambling supplement, because you're more inclined to bet that game on obviously a rival. It's not our partner, but if they have the broadcast rights to the Arizona Bowl and they made it the Barstool Arizona Bowl, you're more inclined to get their specific app because there's exclusive stuff. We've bandied about fun ideas. Wouldn't it be great to have Chris Cody race Chris Whittingham and people can bet on that? What, for 12 people to bet on? Even if it's for 3,000 people to bet on, that doesn't move the needle. A college bowl game will. Yeah. A college bowl game will drive people to your platform. So it's really smart business, and Barstool's going to end up templating because they've been leaders on this industry. You can call into question a bunch when it comes to Barstool, but they've been at the forefront of this, and they're setting the template for everybody else.
Yeah. The big streamers, I don't think they're going to be leaders in redoing the game so you can gamble on it. They got plenty of PR issues without adding to the PR issues that they're now going to participate in a significant way in gambling. They got bigger fish to fry. They're among the very few businesses in the world that are so big that it would not be a significant upgrade in their revenue.
But for Barstool, if they have the rights and their own branded sportsbook, they're absolutely going to do it. Like if I were advising DraftKings, I'd be like, bid on the MLS. MLS is big broadcast rights with a very high ceiling. Just make that exclusive, because then you can own it and people will flock to your platform to bet that specific sport because you'll have deals.
That, my friend, is a good idea. Your job security has done nothing but go up during this meeting. That DraftKings exegesis was something to behold, including even the memorization of the numbers.
Look at that. I've done it a bit. And so let me make this a formal MRE. DraftKings, you should sign the MLS. The MLS would be lucky to have a partner as good as DraftKings Sportsbook. And that is a Mike Ryan exclusive. Let's rather call it an MRE.
Last time you were on with us, Skipper, you taught us a whole bunch of things about what's going on with the conferences. How do you imagine the televised experience is about to change? How do you think television and streaming is going to change? If you're willing to argue, what year were you willing to argue that the Super Bowl might be pay-per-view at the end of the television contract in the middle of 2030s?
Well, I believe you specifically asked me what might happen in 2035 that nobody
It
thought
felt
of.
more like a spitball setch, but people ran with it.
And by the way, I'd never thought of it either, but I was quick. on my feed.
No, you should stop admitting to that because now it might be your patent.
I wish I had a patent. There's no patent of mine, but there is
You'll be credited with it.
But you do the math on 25 million households paying $200 per, and it doesn't look stupid for a idea in response to Dan Le Batard asking me what was going to happen.
But what else do you imagine is going to change? Because everything is changing so quickly. If gambling, you are at the forefront, are you not, of legitimizing fantasy gambling, helping DraftKings and FanDuel and all of these things exist because ESPN and the sports leagues helped make this mainstream.
We had a very large deal. I don't know if everybody remembers the year that every time you cut ESPN on, there was a DraftKings ad. And it helped build that company, which they acknowledge. What else will change? I mean, look, there's almost been no reason for the essential broadcast to change. One of the craziest things I ever heard was when people thought virtual reality was going to be the way that production would change, and it would look like LeBron James was running through your living room.
Didn't you guys go all in on 3D for a little bit? Like there was like so many 3D productions.
There were some 3D productions. I've never been a big fan of 3D for much of anything except those little funny goggles you used to get. And I've never thought that virtual reality has anything to do with watching games. The fact of the matter is, games in 2 dimensions are fabulous. You don't miss anything on a basketball game anymore. You can see the whole thing. It looks great. It's in some ways better than going to the game. This will be the impetus for there to be a different looking, and it'll be more interactive, more data, betting. So the betting will be a catalyst for other changes to the screen. The essential product is good. Do you have a problem? Anybody here have a problem watching an NFL game and knowing what's going on, or having it?
I'd like more entertainment. I've found the product, the way that we do the broadcast, to be a little stiff and not very contemporary. And there hasn't been a lot of innovation in the way the game is broadcast when you can take more risks because you're not actually going to lose the audience. It's why I was so bummed that the Kornheiser and Dennis Miller things didn't work. I was like, that's just public criticism. Nobody's not watching the games just because they don't like a broadcaster on there trying to be a comedian. I thought they closed the door to all comedians on what could have been wildly entertaining programming that would have been evolution.
But I'll be curious for John's perspective on this, because ultimately these are products made for mass consumption. It's why I'm kind of wondering what ultimately the ceiling on gambling-based programming at this kind of level is, right? Because there are a lot of people who still don't even know the technical terms for so-and-so is giving 7 or, over under 38.5. Why is it a half? Like, there are people who are not that evolved with the language of gambling. So I'm curious as to how much that will evolve over the course of time.
While a lot of people are not familiar with it, I don't think it detracts from anybody watching the game, right? The game is being presented very beautifully right now, continue to be, and there'll be this subtext of other things going on that won't interfere with that, and they won't care. Some people don't care about stats, right? Or they don't.
I think gambling was a fairly inclusive hobby for a while. Now you don't really have to seek it out to be able to participate in it. So I think the audience for it gets bigger and more people understand the basics of it. And those things are just going to be a natural part of like your score bug.
Right.
I didn't think I'd enjoy not having action on something specifically, but watching someone else have actions on something. And I'm invested every time I run into it. Like, what we got here? What are we rooting for? Oh, bad beat. That sucks for you. I'm in on it.
Oh, we have to make a big deal about Stugatz, whatever he's gambling. We have to give him a forum where we can root against his picks.
Are you not familiar with our work?
Yes.
We have 2 separate montages about it.
He started 0-17 one season, which is just, it's hard to fathom. It's just hard to fathom.
You couldn't do it if you tried.
I think he did it twice. Didn't he come close to doing it twice?
Bowl season. He started with his NFL picks being terrible, and then he had his bowl season start off just so shitty.
Are you worried, John, at all about the thing that has kept all of this stuff away from sports for a long time is you don't want these associations near your athletes, and then the contamination or corruption of the possible integrity of your sport, because you can't have this infiltration that involves all of a sudden players and coaches are also gambling, because of course there are going to be gambling problems throughout clubhouses and everywhere else where you can't control it.
It will inevitably lead at some point to some problems, right? as all things do. I mean, you've already had referee scandals. There are going to be people who are refereeing games. There's going to be people who are playing games who will not be able to resist the allure of betting on them. And at some point, look at, again, I mentioned tennis as something that actually is interesting. Tennis is almost close to impossible to catch somebody cheating. It's an individual game. It's not hard.
Oh, and you have the withdrawals. Oh, that has burned me quite a few times.
I thought you weren't participating. I thought you were just enjoying.
I said in the rare event that I'm not participating.
Okay.
And someone else has it. Then now I got some skin in the game.
I have a follow-up question on something that you said there. Didn't you sign a mega deal, ESPN and the NBA, right after the Donaghy scandal broke? Wasn't that like days later or something like that?
I don't remember because it was inconsequential, right? I mean, we believed in the quality of the product and we believed in the essential integrity of the game. I was only making the point before that some things are gonna happen, right? With the name and likeness in college, some things are gonna happen that aren't right, and people will have to figure out how to police these things in an appropriate manner. And there'll always be holes. People will figure out how to do things.
Yeah, people will exploit the places where they can, but it's important to note that you're citing examples of things that have already happened in this country when it's been illegal in most states. So the leagues have been prepared for this for a while, and while there have been high-profile scandals like Serie A in Italy had a match-fixing thing that tarnished the legacy of one of its great clubs and sent down Juventus, for the most part, the real problem is gambling addiction. And in this country, they're far out ahead in the messaging. I can't do a read about DraftKings without making sure, and it could just be, I haven't cared this much about the people in Indiana since we played Notre Dame in 2017. But I'm getting it out there because this country is on top of the messaging and some of the things that have plagued other places, and we can learn those lessons.
John, thank you. People really enjoy your voice, and I don't think it's just your voice in terms of it having reach and power. I think it's just your voice.
It's syrupy.
Such a good voice.
I think we're going to try to make some rum out of it, right? I think we could maybe make Dan Le Batard rum.
Or just say caipirinha in your voice.
Caipirinha.
Oh, dear God. That was sensual.
Delicious.
That was sensual.
Dan Le Batard.
I mean, they used to call me Chris Karaoke.
Stugats.
Karaoke.
That back row is bringing it today.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugats.
I want to get to Scarlett Johansson beefing with Disney and how funny it is when Scarlett Johansson, I know people think of her as a star or a starlet, but little Scarlett Johansson going up against the Disney monster, and Disney's retort to contract breaking is the pandemic has been horrific, which has nothing to do with contract breaking, and it's Disney looking for sympathy. But before we get to that, I have to talk a little bit more about a seismic echoing sports story. I'm just scared to, because the last time, a couple of days ago, that I brought up Lionel Messi and how messy all of that is, what ended up happening is Mike Ryan put on an imaginary seatbelt, and Chris Whittingham got into his seat saying audibly under his breath to no one in particular, "Oh, here we go." And it felt like he was getting on an amusement park ride, because this Messi story is crazy. I understand that maybe in the United States, we understand if we're not paying attention to soccer or you don't care about soccer, maybe. Yeah, Messi, I know that name. But I don't think the scope of this is hitting in the United States the way it's vibrating all over the rest of the world, that this guy is altering the entire landscape by moving to a club. You saw this happening, Mike, moving to a club. You did actually tell me a few days ago that this is the path toward getting to Miami, but he has just torn asunder an ESPN television contract, has he not? Like, where are people going to?
A lot of things have been thrown into upheaval because a lot of deals were negotiated. La Liga got a certain amount of funding under the acknowledgement that Lionel Messi was going to be a part of that league. And now, when you could say, finally, I don't have to try to track down beIN Sports because La Liga is coming to ESPN. And that's a big victory for ESPN. He goes to Ligue 1, and you have to find a login for your beIN Sports cable television. Ray Hudson retired. He's like, no Messi, no reason for me to continue doing this. And now he's probably trying to find a way to get back. Yes, when we tackled this earlier in the week, I unfortunately brought it to a Mike Ryan exclusive, and I regret doing that. But
You did that a lot this week so far.
So far this week, I've done it a lot. But I think for Americans, most people listening to this, even though the metrics are changing, they still are soccer agnostic. That's not something for them. They like football, college football, and basketball. The real story here is that arguably the greatest player ever wanted to stay at his club. Wasn't the case last year. He did want to leave, and they worked something out. He is being forced to leave his club. Gave an emotional press conference. He wasn't ready to go. How could this happen? How could Barcelona not figure this out? What is going on? Well, there have been a ton of red flags about how poorly mismanaged Barcelona has been. We've been hearing it, and it's one of those things that it's not real.
What kind of discount was he willing to take in order to stay there?
He was willing to take a 50% discount. That's what's been reported in the media. I have done my own reporting, not to bring it back to a Mike Ryan exclusive. But the plan has always been for Lionel Messi to spend 2 more years in Europe, ramp up, test his mettle against Europe's best in preparation for the World Cup, because he hasn't won a World Cup with Argentina, and then after that, make his move over to American MLS. And hopefully, for locals down here, Inter Miami. That has since been reinforced, by the way, because even though there's a third-year option, he negotiated a 2-year deal with PSG, further confirming the Mike Ryan exclusive.
I can't believe that 50 years later, we're still here. After the Cosmos went with a late-aged Pele, we are still in this place 50 years later, where the old guy coming over to America to play soccer at the end of his legendary run is a thing that can absolutely lift a soccer economy.
Well, Chris Whittingham can speak to how good Messi still is right now, but a little bit more on Barcelona for a brief moment, and Whitty can probably talk about the financials of that, because Barcelona also kind of thought in how this deal came about that, La Liga will let us skate. We've been skating. They have a malleable salary cap. It's not a cap number for everybody. Where it is here in the NFL, different teams have a different cap number.
It's based on your revenue.
It's based on your revenue. And Barcelona has been spending an insane amount of money. They make a lot of money in terms of revenue, but the wages that they pay for their players far outweighs it. It's ridiculous, Chris.
Yeah, and it's actually even more remarkable mismanagement when you consider that Messi is going to a team in PSG that has Neymar on it. Now, remember, Neymar made massive headlines 4 or 5 years ago because his release clause was paid by PSG while he was a Barcelona player. That was 220 million euros. 220. They got a $220 million influx of cash and still blew it.
Yeah.
And still didn't have enough money at the end to pay Lionel Messi.
That price tag is just to have the right to negotiate your own player wages for the player. That's just the price tag it takes to get
That's just
them
the
away.
money that is exchanged between the clubs.
And now I have an exclusive negotiating window to work a deal out.
That's why some of the salary caps in this country are so stupid. Over there, they're paid commensurate with what their revenue is.
Well, over there, they're starting to think these salary caps are a decent idea because these clubs basically... So Real Madrid and Barcelona is such an arms race. Mike, you've talked before about the lack of wisdom in the Green Bay Packers ownership model. Real Madrid and Barcelona are essentially the Green Bay Packers. They're clubs. They're not businesses. They're not owned by anybody. So the members of Barcelona run Barcelona. They just make such a massive amount of money that it is self-sustainable. So much so that they weren't really considering that financial ruin was ever a possibility. They never considered that this day would come where they ran out of money. They ran out of money to pay Lionel Messi, and it's because of the pandemic, but it's also because they've given out horrible contracts to players that aren't worth it. They've asked them to take pay cuts. The players have said, no, go bleep yourself. I have a contract. And so they've ended up in a situation where they don't have any money, but the ultimate consideration was, what's Real Madrid doing? We'll pay more. Then Real Madrid goes, what's Barcelona doing? We'll pay more. They've been in such an arms race that it's come to a point where they've run out of money.
I wish we had seen Jerry Jones and Daniel Snyder unencumbered like this, because it's what would have happened. You would have seen just insane numbers thrown all over the place, and some superstar would have left because Lionel Messi makes a lot more than anybody in American sports per season. You look at Was it $150 million a season that he was making?
Correct.
So,
They have like these things called loyalty bonuses and things like that. When you include salary and bonus, it's about $150 million a season.
and LeBron's about 40.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just for what he does on the court, yeah, he's capped.
That's funny.
I mean, it's wild.
Yeah.
It's absolutely wild. It kind of makes you realize there's this whole big world out there for soccer agnostic people. It's massive business, and the fact that they were trying to learn lessons and blew up in their faces with the Super League, and it's a bit of an archaic model that they have. We made fun of the Green Bay Packers, as you said, but now they're finally starting to see that they're tailing behind. They don't have oil money to bail them out. They don't have to, they have to get these bargain basement deals. They have to wait for players who just want to wear that badge because of the prestige of playing for Barca or Real Madrid to hold off on signing big deals with other clubs and wait for buyout clauses like maybe Erling Haaland is doing, or get a free transfer like Memphis Depay. Like, they are now operating within the margins, and they had this bravado that they never had to adhere. But if they didn't correct it, they being La Liga, it might have brought the entire league down if they kept going on.
What happens to Barcelona? What happens that they don't have?
Love how you said that. Love how you said that. Yeah. Well,
happens to Barcelona?
I mean, what happens is they kind of become just another team in Europe. Without Messi, you look at the players that they have. They're a decent Champions League team. Maybe might make it to a quarterfinal, but you would not tip them to win the competition at all. You'd absolutely have Real and Atletico ahead of them right now in the Spanish league. They just are kind of another team because they've lost the one thing that made them special.
Can I get a couple of sounds from you here? I don't think.
Is that what you meant?
That is not the sound that I wanted from you.
But it's a good one, though.
I thought you just wanted me to make some sounds.
I want some actual sound of Sid Seixeiro calling Lionel Messi a fraud. And I want any Ray Hudson sound that you can give me, just so that the audience that doesn't know what you're talking about, and I don't know how many people do or don't know. I actually don't have any idea our metrics, how many people want soccer talk or care about football talk. But Ray Hudson is one of the most colorful announcers in the history of announcing. He makes everything in soccer better, and I want to know what it means that he is retired on the spot, or decided to retire on the spot, Messi-related retirement.
Courtesy of beIN Sports.
Gomes looking for the overlap. Alba inside. It's Messi!
From Messi, beautiful counter-attack, all the pieces falling into place. Messi, born in the crossfire hurricane, and he is jumping Jack Flash. Amazing football. The defenders are left with bees flying around him, and he cared not about the yellow card. Messi, you could drop a tarantula into his shorts and he'll still be cool.
After Inter Miami won late the other day, he announced that there would be a lot of hoochie coochie in Fort Lauderdale.
Kind of a drop down.
How much more?
I don't have any more. Stop asking me questions on the air, please. But I've got that Sid Seixeiro sound that you wanted.
You do have all the sound I asked for then.
Fancy lad, can you define hoochie poochie for us?
Hoochie coochie.
Hoochie coochie.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
hoochie
even
coochie, very
worse.
different.
You talking about a dog? What's going on?
I'm pretty sure he can articulately describe that, because I'm pretty sure that's what he calls it. That or the hanky-panky.
Domestically, he's won everything there is to win at Barcelona.
Yeah.
And he started Barcelona, 13?
Yeah.
Here's how you know what Messi's about. When they were winning the best things at Barcelona, it was Messi, was Xavi, Iniesta, David Villa. That was a team. When they would break from 2008 on and go their separate ways for major tournaments, Xavi and Iniesta and David Villa and all those Spanish guys from Barca were winning tournaments. Messi, the second he steps on a field without that core, is average. And you have seen it in Copa Americas, you have seen it in World Cups, because Xavi's not there, because Iniesta's not there, because David Villa's not there. And the best players I've ever seen in my life can play with anybody. Fraud.
Now, Messi did just win the Copa America. So
With some
unfortunately,
bang average players.
yeah, this is a dated soundbite now.
We got to get Sashera on to see if the opinion is any different. But Whittingham, how good, Mike Ryan threw it to you and said that you can speak to how good he has been. 2 years from now, he's still going to be that good at 38 years old when they'd be relying on him in Miami to change and fix a whole bunch of mismanagement, not unlike Barcelona, because it's been a total nightmare. This has been a terrible start for...
Dan, they signed two of the worst contracts in the history of MLS. Pellegrini, who's now been sent back, and Blas Matuidi. But Messi is still very good. And he's going to be very good in 2 years. Hell, he might be very good for MLS in 10 years. While the league is ascending... 10 years? Well, I mean, he's
like 45.
How good was Pedro was good for a while.
Bag.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom Brady's a champion. He's 44.
Yeah. I still trust him with the ball at his feet. I'll tell you that. I'll take Messi at 44 years old with the ball at his feet.
He's aging unlike most players we see, and that seems to be a theme in modern sports. So I'm not going to put it past him that in a couple of years' time, he's still keeping in good shape. And ultimately, it's about his skill and vision on the ball. He's always been immensely quick, but it's always about the thought, and that's not going to go away. He's still going to be able to thread through balls like anyone else.
How excited are you guys about that?
About what's happening in 2 years?
About that. About this is the path is there. The hard things have happened to get Messi to Miami.
Yeah. I mean, his finishing has dropped off some. He's not...
Scored 30 goals last year.
Which it's really a testament to how great he was, because he still is arguably a top 3 player in the world. I think pretty irrefutably. He's still a top 3 player in the world. And it's going to be a blast to watch him at PSG. If I can get someone's login credentials, that'd be great, because they got Mbappe and Neymar. But what he brings to the table still, what I don't see going away, MLS doesn't really have that. They've got the finishing. Oh my God, the goals that are scored in MLS are incredible. Yeah. But they don't have someone that can shake you out of your cleats all that much. When you have someone that was considered a top 3 player, they do pretty well in MLS. Zlatan is still doing it at Serie A, and he carved that league up.
How is that possible? How is that dude still doing that?
He was really good. He was really good. At a time, he was, which is like, he came into MLS around the age that Messi would presumably come into MLS.
How is that possible?
Off a torn ACL, by the way, for Zlatan.
Because he was all-time great. He was all-time great. And you have Robbie Keane come to MLS, and at the time, like, set that league ablaze with his goal-scoring production.
He's gotten better since then, but yeah.
But, yeah, the league has gotten better. But it's Robbie Keane. It's a guy that found his way to MLS because, he had a good career at Tottenham, but, Irish international superstar. Never considered best in the world. Messi's considered that. And in 2 years, he's going to have the cachet, undoubtedly, but he'll also have the skill to dominate.
The only way it doesn't work is if he's just on such a different wavelength than a guy who was taken out of the University of Maryland 8th overall in the college draft, which is the least relevant thing that happens in soccer yet. There are guys like that are all over MLS. So, like, if he's just so far ahead thought-wise with everyone else, but it will be a distinct pleasure to watch even if it doesn't work, because he has these ideas, and you see, even if he can't execute them, oh my God, he executed a pass that no one would even dream of making. So you can just watch him and admire the artistry in what he does.
I think that is something that people are missing, though, when they are soccer ignorant, that you are seeing something thought-wise that they're like, what the hell are you talking about? He's a fire hydrant with thighs. What's he doing that's any different than anyone else out there? Thought-wise. I'm telling you, the people listening to this who are not interested, Messi or soccer, they don't understand the analysis of thought-wise.
I understand, but ambition is something that can jump off the screen. An NBA, like, oh, that's an ambitious pass, or a quarterback trying to thread the needle. Sometimes it's Cam Newton and it goes the other way, but sometimes it's Aaron Rodgers and you see the idea there. When Steph Curry pulls up at half court, doesn't necessarily always go in, but you're like, holy shit, he has a confidence in himself to try this. I think the more familiar that you get with the sport, the more you get to see where someone's mind is, the type of passes they try to play.
You can watch him once and know why he's one of the greatest ever.
Yeah.
Like, it's even if you can't put your finger on it, you can just get it.
You know exactly how hard it is, because even if you don't like soccer, at a certain point in your life, you've tried dribbling a soccer ball. And that shit is hard. And he does that through traffic. and it sticks to his foot in ways that defy logic sometimes. And I see a lot of great footballers that have that skill. His still jumps off.
Miami will screw it up.
Possibly.